All right, we live, Bina, we live.
Hello and welcome to Bonus Culture. Good morning, Sil. Good morning, Grain, and good morning to everyone who is going to watch us live and recorded later. You all are most welcome to be part of this bonus culture because we all are part of bonus
Well,
culture, whether we are aware of it or not. Because universe is about moreness. Naturally, universe is about moreness. Innately, universe is about moreness. If we see that, we can see in every aspect of life moreness. There is always more, always.
oil,
It is
oil,
something
oil.
like we just need, if we start paying attention, then we will see that. It is just a matter of attention. We try to see and then we will find that. So we
Well,
are here in the Mourners culture, and we were okay not here yesterday because of course appropriateness, and we were busy doing something. But before that, Sil shared about his Vegas time he spent there at the authors conference, and he shared something. Of course, I was feeling a bit not so satisfied with his sharing because he gets into this sharing of like okay how to do the TikTok and other things, which is of course valuable. But I was keen to know more about what he was experiencing as a person being there interacting
oh,
with so many
oh,
people, and how was their energy, what was the awareness he was perceiving, what was the energy he was perceiving there. I was keen to know more about this thing, because
oh.
and also I was trying to interrupt him. I tried at least once when he was sharing about the TikTok and other technical stuff. Why I was doing that, my intent was because these are just okay, these are valuable, of course valuable, and he connected it to still connected it with the moreness or like always. But this is something I'm practicing in my life, to not get into hurry of sharing.
Not
Oversharing,
not get into what?
into hurry of like, oh, I need to share right now, share right
Oh,
now.
oh,
Whenever
oh,
we
oh,
get something.
not to be too much in a hurry to share. Ah, I got you. Okay.
Exactly. Yes, because
Yeah.
this is something I realize that people get into this helping mood and sharing
Yeah.
mood.
No, no,
Yes,
no, no.
because whenever they get something valuable, profound, with all their earnest goodness, they want to share it
Yeah,
immediately with others, which
yeah,
is by
yeah.
implication giving us a message that I don't need this, but other people's do.
Well,
First thing. The second thing is that we don't let it simmer and make it our own. Of course, that was a technical thing. I'm just using this as an example here. But making it own requires a bit of time. Even when you completely understand and you feel that oh, super confident, this is perfect. I know, but let it be for some time. Just stay with this, and then it is like okay when you are out and you are just okay waiting at the bus station or train or whatever, you're sitting on a bench and someone else also just come and sit next to you. You will get immediate information about that person with some, of course, with some awareness and okay, what's their aura, what's their body language, how they are interacting, how they are sitting, and all these things, and of course some other clues. To know someone, to perceive their energy, you need to spend some time, even in the brief moments. This spending time, this quiet time, requires also for awareness. This is my understanding. This is what
yeah.
I'm learning right now. That what Sil is sharing. Sometimes I just get in complete quiet mood, like raw quiet. No, don't
Oh,
say anything about it because just let it sink in and be with it and let that awareness reveal itself. He shared it. Right now, this is his sharing, and it is so profound. But what this that awareness means to you, how this is going to interact with you, stay with you. That is something I
Right. Well,
feel
let me
that
answer on
we
that then.
all need some time, that simmering time for these things.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you
And
wanted to
then,
know, oh,
yes. No, 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 please
oh,
continue.
you wanted to know about my perception of Las Vegas itself, the energy, the people, stuff like that,
Yes,
yeah?
the city, the people, the event, everything.
Why? Well, first of all, in Las Vegas, for me, and I feel this is not only my perception, there is a different energy. And there's
Yes.
definitely a different energy when you are on the strip or downtown Las Vegas as opposed to going out into regular Vegas, right? Which is
Uh-huh.
typically North Las Vegas, right? When you go, we drove around a bit, and I shared with Bina, and we didn't go too far into it. But when you do, now you get to, where the people that work in Vegas, where they live and shop and go on, it's like any other city in America, right? But you can feel that drop off in energy very quickly because we drove around a bit and we went past kind of some residential, bit of industrial, and it was very noticeable the energy difference, right, Bina? You could see it in the architecture, building, everything. So Vegas itself, when you're on the strip and in the casinos and that, there's definitely a higher energy because the people that are there, they're on vacation, they're having fun, right? And and that's infectious because everybody's on a very positive high. Even the employees, all right, it's their job too, but you go other places, you don't quite feel that same energy. There's definitely a hyper energy in Las Vegas, and it's very cool. Excuse me, it's very cool. It's very fun, very
Yes.
different.
Hmm.
And also now in the author conference, this was most excellent as well. All right, now in the author conference, you're not necessarily feeling that Vegas hype energy because the people are coming for the author conference. And many of them have been before, or most even in previous years, and they're not coming to the author conference with Vegas in mind. Actually, I didn't really meet anyone who came and, oh, it's cool to be in Vegas and I can't wait to go out and go to the casino or whatever. Right? That's just wasn't part of the author's mindset and vibe. Right? So the Vegas mindset wasn't there. Actually, some of the authors were very introverted and all this. And, oh my gosh, Vegas is very overwhelming. One guy specifically said that to me. So you could see that in some of the authors, right? Who are, when they go back home, they're in their own bubble and they're very introverted. They don't mix and socialize very much. They just write their story. Right. So for those people, Vegas is too much. They don't care for it. They don't like it even. It stresses them. Now, though, in the author conference, this is very different, right? And Bina, I'm explaining it all to you, and now you're not here. Anyhow, in the author conference, you get a very different vibe and a very different mind because inside the author conference, everybody's there now. They want to be there. Yes, they enjoy being there, and they're coming specifically for the author moreness. And there was a lot. There was a lot in this, right? And
Yes.
this the sharing, Venus back, brilliant, brilliant. The sharing, the understanding, the awareness, right? This is really cool. And also in the author conference, this is a mood that's very particular to the author conference. It is incredibly supportive. Yeah. So when and in between, okay, so the way it worked, at least on the first day, in the big lobby, kind of right where you come into in the conference center, and from this, it's like a big, well, a lobby is a good way, but it's kind of a big lobby, and from this lobby, there's doors going into smaller rooms, and then you walk around in a little way, and then there was the big center, the main convention center for the bigger events, right? So, Bina, while you had dropped there, I was explaining about in the convention center, right? There's
Okay,
sort of
just
like
for a
a
few seconds,
lobby,
sir.
and then from
So
there
please
it went
continue.
off into doors and the bigger one. All right.
Yes.
Anyway, and so when we first got there, we had all the vendor tables and then the seminars, the talks on whatever it is, how to structure your book's character, whatever, how to promote market, every aspect of writing that you can imagine. They had 192 talks. The point I'm making, I don't want to go into details about convention, but the point I'm making in that lobby, the first day they had vendors there, but there was also a hangout and then they put food out and coffee and all this, right? So in between the seminars, you'd hang out in this lobby, right? Because the seminars typically ended 15 minutes, 45 minutes, and then on the hour was the
Mm.
next one. So you had 15 minutes
Uh-huh.
in between. All right, now sometimes you'd be hanging out, you talk to the speaker a little bit, but there's a lot of opportunity to hang out and connect with the other authors. It's designed that way, right? And when we did hang out like this, or in the talks too, sometimes it's open question, and some of them were meetups. They called meetups. It's more informal. The person's not giving a speech, and everybody's talking and chatting, and all right. And whenever the new authors come, well, what's your genre? What do you write? Well, my name is Mary, and well, I'm not published yet, and they would always be a bit apologetic, right? I'm not published yet, and every time the published authors, and some of them are very successful, multiple hundreds of books, literally, they would be a bit irritated by this and a bit, like, come on, don't. They didn't say it, but I said it to them. I said, don't apologize for being a new author. Claim the fact that you're an author. If you're writing and you're going to publish at some point, that's it. Even if you don't intend to publish, if you're writing, you're an author. That's it. Claim it, own it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I said, just notice how the published authors, how they don't like it when you are a bit awkward and uncomfortable in being new. Yes, and how they are encouraging you to not be that way. They didn't say claim it. I'm saying claim it. But when you understand this is what they want you to do, oh yes, supportiveness, right? This was really massive. And oh, I'm a new author, and sometimes they would applaud. Yes, good for you, well done. Very, very, very supportive, and also just the openness. I mean, I made friends with one lovely author who's a new author and very shy, and this was, that's not uncommon, but that supportiveness of that environment, this is very wonderful. It's really cool. And, it carries over not just into authorness. Be aware that just because you're new at something doesn't mean you don't belong. The new belong just as much as the old. Yeah. It's because you're a newbie doesn't mean you don't belong. I mean, if that was the case, nobody would play games. Once they've been around for a little while, because in any of the games that you play that have been around for a while, there's a bunch of veterans that have played the game. They know everything about it, and they're also very supportive of newbies. The only people who aren't supportive of newbies is newbies. Claim being a newbie, own it, enjoy it. So, man, I'm happy to be a newbie. I'm thrilled to be an author, to be here. I got so much to learn. Well, everybody's got a lot to learn, whether you're a newbie or not. You see, doesn't matter. But in life in general, we are kind of perpetual newbies in life. And it's that to me is the carryover, the moreness. But it was really wonderful to be in a supportive environment. Oh, so that's the other thing. So in the main convention center, the big one, right, where they had where there were bigger things going on. When they started up, they put typical convention seating, and then at the back, they put round tables. And so when I came, everybody was sitting there at the round tables before the thing had started, the first big talk. And it's like, okay, I saw what was going on. Well, I need a place to sit. And I realized that, yeah, crashing a table is not only required, but welcome, right? So I went up to the first table and I had a look. And it was a very interesting table. There was a bunch of women. Okay. So would you mind if I crash? Uh, Okay, sure, no problem. So, well, my luck that the first open chair is at a table full of women. Score me. Anyway, they all thought that was funny. So anyway, at least they enjoyed it. My point is they welcomed it, right? And then we shared and we talked. And, mostly when people share like that, oh, where are you from? No, I said, no, I'm not going to do this. And I said, what's your genre? Ah, Of course, you're talking about your stuff now. You light up. Why are you writing? What are you talking about? And we went all around the table, and this was fantastic, right? And many of those that I connected to on that table later on, hello, how are you? And how cool? How are you enjoying the thing? What did you learn? What's important? You make connections. You make connections. You make connections. It's not hard. All you've got to understand is that when it's in an environment like that, that little bit of forwardness, which I grew up not, it was a big no-no, right? And being modest and being humble and not being forward. This is a very big deal culturally, right? And it's something that I subscribe to because it's innate politeness and courtesy. Yeah. So kind of pushing yourself into a situation, this is, back in the day, absolute no-no, except at other times it is appropriate. And this is the philosophy of appropriateness, which is what we're all about. Yes, Mourner's culture is founded on the philosophy of appropriateness. It was appropriate to crash. I called it crashing, right? It was absolutely not just appropriate, but welcomed. Yes. So this is, oh, great. Oh, wonderful. And they love it that somebody's new is coming in. And this was very cool. And also when people walked up to the table, please crash. We love crashes. I would always say, oh, okay, thank you. Very simple stuff. But I think that if I were the organizers and there are new ones there, I would make it a bit more clear in your program. Hey, crashing is welcome. Crashing. I actually recommended they have volunteer table hosts because this round table thing was something they sort of experimented with, but next year they're going to do it even more. So, somebody like me, okay, I volunteered to be a table host. Yeah, I'm good at it. I know what I'm doing. I know exactly how to get things going, get people, make them comfortable, right? I have those skills. And a lot of people do. I'm not the only one. So I volunteer, and you get a little different lanyard color because they had the lanyard with your badge on it, and some of them who were presenters had a different color lanyard. Okay, you're a table host, you get whatever, a purple lanyard. So in your preceding, you say, look for then you see, oh, here's a table and it's got a table host. Now somebody's there, you can join, and they are going to be responsible for keeping things going and chat and all this. So you don't have to say anything. You don't have to feel awkward. It's not, well, what am I going to say? What am I? Somebody else is going to be doing that. And they know they're going to welcome you and pull you in. I thought this is a very great idea. And I think the presenter, the main guy, the organizer who runs it, Joe Solari is his name. I think I mentioned it to him, and okay, yeah, he got a lot of ideas. How many will stick in his brain? I don't know, but going forward, the main point I'm making is that you're facilitating interconnectivity, and that's what it's all about, right? So I didn't do it initially, but I will certainly next year. I started doing it later because I saw somebody else like, okay, I'm learning. With a name tag, don't just exchange business cards. Have the person hold up the name tag and take a photo. Yeah. So you get the name, and on the name tag, they had little stickers that where you from, kind of like Southwest, just regionally, but also what your genres were, right? So you could see, oh, sci-fi, nonfiction, whatever. Some had very many, some just had one. But also you can connect the face to the name, right? Which is very helpful. So simple things, simple things. But the point I'm making is about what you're saying in terms of the vibe and the mood, Bina. Supportive, open, learning, growth. Doesn't matter
Perfect.
who they were,
Perfect.
supportive, open, connected to learning and growth. I mean, I met quite a few different authors there who had written literally, who have published more than 100 books. Yeah. So they've been
Wow.
around,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, and some of them are big. They've done Hollywood movies and big shot stuff. Or you can go and talk to them anytime. It's really interesting. So again, to be aware that when you're in an environment, you have to adapt to the environment, not to what you usually do. Typically, okay, somebody's a bit of a celebrity. I don't want to go and bother them and approach them, out in public. But in that place, there, they want you to come because that's why they're there. Okay? See? Make sense,
Yes.
Bina?
Yes.
Appropriateness. Does that answer your
Yes.
question or is there more? Please ask more
Yes.
questions if
Yes.
that doesn't answer your
Yes.
question.
Yes. 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 This is exactly what I was keen to do, because this is something
Very
you
good.
don't find that event has independently, event has its own energy. authors has their own energy, and of course the mood and the vibe of the city,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything.
The mood and the vibe was wonderful. I mean, I had an absolute blast. It was just a great joy to be there. I got to tell you, it was very wonderful, very wonderful. And well, typically, if I'm talking about stuff, and it's, oh, what are you doing? And well, I'm an author and I do courses, programs, monos culture. People will listen sometimes. Sometimes they are interested, but a lot of times it's just sort of polite nod and it goes in one ear and out the other ear, you know. But yeah, when I started sharing about monos culture and how I'm doing my books and that, I wrote them first and I'm publishing now, it's like, oh, they really got interested. And some people are very connected to that. And you'll get to meet them. They're going to be on the Mono show. So, I don't know if, well, I suppose what we could do, Bina, is once we get the show going, we could do the lives, do a watch party of the show, right?
Oh
If it's a good
yes.
show, we rewatch it,
Yes,
we play it and stop and pause and talk about it and do a capital R hearing, capital H hearing of
exactly.
our own show.
Yes.
Because not
Oh
everybody
yes.
will get to connect to that, right? So that'd be pretty cool. All right. Ilsa has joined us on TikTok. Hello, Ilsa. Hello, Ilsa. Uh, let's continue with our reading. So where are we at with Carlos? We're reading. Carlos is doing the capital R reading, which is layered, looking at the mourners, looking at the depth, bringing extra to it, bringing our mourners to bear it, connecting it to mourners culture, etc., etc. So we're doing a lot with our reading, and we're on book 2, which is the task of perceiving. Yes, now we are changing Don Juan's term of seeing to perceiving because Don Juan himself says later on this is not a very good term and we don't want to be visually focused. Perceiving is with all your senses and more, right? And now he's looking to get Carlos to perceive because Don Gennaro gave him this wonderful opportunity and he didn't. He wasted it all. And so Don Juan says the only way to do this is to smoke the little smoke again. And Carlos is a bit reluctant and he's very hesitant, but he does it anyway because he's very keen to learn to capital P perceive. All right. And this is where we're starting. So I'll read Don Juan and Bina will read the
You
rest. All
need
right.
to you need to share the screen.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you, Bina. Thank you, Bina. Thank you, Bina. And let's do share screen. There we go. There we go. And we see Carlos as his fears, his insecurity, all this, right? I mean, we have to understand that Carlos is very insecure, and he's got issues a little bit, but that's what makes Carlos so wonderful for this. The universe selected him with all his peculiarities, so that we can get the benefits out of it. And we have to always keep that universal intent in mind to understand that nothing is random. There's a logic to everything. Yes, you have choice, but it doesn't mean that your environment is random. Environment is there for you to make choices, to stimulate you to make particular choices, you know, that are necessary for you. Yeah. So in this case, look here with Carlos, right? Don Juan says to him, "You don't want to lose your clarity, do you?"
Still, it's just still a bit blur for me. So please continue. I will join
Oh,
as soon as.
okay. Tell me when it's clear. Just say clear, and then you jump in, right? That's very right, Don Juan, I said. He laughed with apparent delight. Clarity, the second enemy of a person of knowledge, has loomed upon you. You're not afraid, he said reassuringly, but now you hate to lose your clarity. And since you're a fool, you call that fear. And get me some charcoals. His tone was kind and reassuring. I got up automatically and went to the back of the house and gathered some small pieces of burning charcoal from the fire, put them on top of a small stone slab, and returned to the room. Come out here to the porch, Don Juan called loudly from outside. He placed a straw mat on the spot where I usually sit. I put the charcoals next to him, and he blew on them to activate the fire. I was about to sit down, but he stopped me and told me to sit on the right side of the mat. He then put a piece of charcoal in the pipe and handed it to me. I took it. I was amazed at the silent forcefulness with which Don Juan had steered me. Capital C queuing in the language of conceptuality, right? This is a major term in our dictionaries of power, right? Very, very powerful. So he's being queued. He's queuing Carlos, just very powerfully. Yeah, Carlos is a bit aware of it now, right? Which is very cool. I was amazed at the silent forcefulness with which Don Juan had steered me. I could not think of anything to say. I had no more arguments. I was convinced that I was not afraid, but only unwilling to lose my clarity. That's very interesting that he'd shifted, right? Because he was so afraid before. He was terrified of doing this. And now he's okay, because he came to that awareness point, right? Which is what we do in mourners culture. ADU, awareness, discernment, understanding. We aim to get to that point of understanding. You start with being aware. Carlos is aware of the issues, what's going on, and he got a little bit more aware. And Don Juan brought his awareness to this point of losing your clarity. Yes. And then, well, they didn't get into much discernment, a little bit. Clarity, the second enemy. They said, and then Carlos got it. He had the understanding. Now, however, right, ADU doesn't stand alone. ADU is a tool for the purpose of application. Once you have that understanding, then you're able to apply. If you don't apply, it doesn't mean anything. So, of course, Carlos now has to apply this fact that he's afraid of losing his clarity. That's his issue. And he has to get over that, which means you have to just do and get into it, right? All right. So this is, but only unwilling to lose my clarity. Puff, puff, he ordered me gently. Just one bowl this time. Are you ready still? Can you read, Bina?
No, I will jump
Not yet.
immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I sucked on the pipe and heard the chirping of the mixture catching on fire. I felt an instantaneous coat of ice inside my mouth and my nose. I took another puff and the coating extended to my chest. When I had taken the last puff, I felt that the entire inside of my body was coated with the peculiar sensation of cold warmth. Don Juan took the pipe away from me and tapped the bowl on his palm to loosen the residue. Then, as he always does, he wet his finger with saliva and rubbed it inside the bowl. My body was numb, but I could move. I changed positions to sit more comfortably. What's going to happen? I asked. I had some difficult vocalizing. Maybe I should say, what's going to happen? I don't know how he sounded, but that's what I imagined it to be. I had some difficulty vocalizing. Don Juan very carefully put his pipe inside its sheath and rolled it up in a long piece of cloth. Then he sat up straight, facing me. I felt dizzy. My eyes were closing involuntarily. Don Juan shook me vigorously and ordered me to stay awake. He said I knew very well that if I fell asleep, I would die. That jolted me. It occurred to me that Don Juan was probably just saying that to keep me awake. But on the other hand, it also occurred to me that he might be right. you know, I am inordinately fascinated at how the superiority paradigm is influential and how it comes out, right? In Carlos's mind, whenever Don Juan is saying something to him, he always has this thought in the back of his mind that Don Juan is doing this to manipulate him and lie to him in some way. And it comes out like this, right? Well, he might be saying it he might be basically just BSing me to leverage and maneuver me, right? He doesn't take it. He just assumes this is a default for Don Juan, right? As it is for everybody in Carlos's world, including himself. Yeah. This is more in this paradigm. When you understand, yes, of course, people can do that. But when you understand, like, with Bina, I would never assume that of Bina. I always would assume that Bina's being honest. Because why would you want to be anything else? Right? Yeah.
It's
Different
because
assumptions.
yeah, but also because that, okay, I just want to go a bit in detail to make it clear for myself that it is because of the space we are sharing right now. There is
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
other than being honest. Like, what
Exactly.
else?
Exactly.
Why not?
And when you understand, exactly. And when you were in mourners, when we understand that being honest and particularly self-honest leads to so much. It's so wonderful. It's so brilliant. It's so awesome. And also, when you aren't honest, you basically just start diminishing things, and you might as well be taking bites out of yourself when you are dishonest. Yeah, especially with yourself. And why would you want to do that? Yeah. It's only because in superiority paradigm there is a artificial value. The value is real, but it's an artificial criteria that makes it valuable, and that's very sad. Which is why the superiority paradigm is so devastating, because it kind of in a way creates an environment where lying almost becomes a necessity. That's horrible. That's really horrible. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. So anyway, very cool. But my point is, I'm just amused, that he always has this doubt as to Don Juan's intent and motivations, and he doesn't. Well, let me put it this way: there's a side of Carlos that respects Don Juan no end, that knows Don Juan is more. But there's the other side, the superiority paradigm side, that always has these doubts, right? He hasn't quite stepped fully into that world yet. And it's because he doesn't have the sophistication yet to do it. And that's why mourner's culture. We explain the nuance of what's involved. That, yes, you are going to relate to people as if they are more, as if they are honest. And you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they'll step into that bubble, right? If you do it properly. It's a very profound thing to do. I mean, I was doing it at the conference talking about this too, Bina, right? That, and I mentioned this to people, when this started way back when. But it's not just about seeing good in people. It's about creating the bubble and the environment where they can now share and express their moreness. And you're opening a door for them, right? And that was huge. That was huge, right? And I do this on a regular basis. I've been doing it all my life. But when you understand the mechanism involved, it doesn't mean that I switch off from being aware of their nonsense. No, I just don't emphasize it. I de-emphasize it to the point that the other person will quite legitimately think I'm not aware of their nonsense, but I am. I'm just de-emphasizing it out of existence, but I don't completely. It's not. It's not that I get to a point where I'm totally unaware of it. It's way down there in the back, right? But it's completely de-emphasized, and I've created their 1%. I've made into the 99.9%. Yeah, and that is a big, 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 big deal. Very big deal. Oh, it's a queuing in a positive way, very positive way. And then when you interact with people, you get all that moreness that they hide. Because superiority paradigm, as soon as you have a little bit of moreness, it wants to push you down, right? Oh, very sad business. Anyway, yeah, let's continue. Where were we? That jolted me. It occurred to me that Don Juan was probably just saying that to keep me awake. But on the other hand, it also occurred to me that he might be right. I opened my eyes as wide as I could, and that made Don Juan laugh. He said that I had to wait for a while and keep my eyes open all the time, and that at a given moment, I would be able to see the guardian of the other world. Wow. I felt a very annoying heat all over my body. I tried to change positions, but I could not move anymore. I wanted to talk to Don Juan. The words seemed to be so deep inside of me that I could not bring them out. Then I tumbled on my left side and found myself looking at Don Juan from the floor. He leaned over and ordered me in a whisper not to look at him, but to stare fixedly at a point on my mat which was directly in front of my eyes. He said that I had to look with one eye, my left eye, and that sooner or later I would perceive the guardian. Right? So yeah, this guardian really needs to be in a capital G. Right? It's a very particular thing here. Very unique. It's not just a regular guardian, right? It's the guardian. It's kind of its name almost. Um, I fixed my stare on the spot he had pointed to, but I did not see anything. At a certain moment, however, I noticed a gnat flying in front of my eyes. It landed on the mat. I followed its movements. It came very close to me, so close that my visual perception blurred. And then, all of a sudden, I felt as if I had stood up. It was a very puzzling sensation that deserved some pondering, but there was no time for that. I had the total sensation that I was looking straight onward with from my usual eye level, And what I saw shook up the last fiber of my being. There's no other way to describe the emotional jolt I experienced. Right there, facing me, a short distance away, was a gigantic, monstrous animal. A truly monstrous thing. Never in the wildest fantasies of fiction had I encountered anything like it. I looked at it in complete, utmost bewilderment. The first thing I really noticed was its size. I thought, for some reason, that it must be close to 100 feet tall. Holy moly. So what is 100 feet? That's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 story building, something like that, right? I think 23, 4. Anyway, a building sized monster, right? That's pretty big. It seemed to be standing erect, although I could not figure out how it stood. Next, I noticed that it had wings, two short, wide wings. At that point, I became aware that I insisted on examining the animal as if it were an ordinary sight. That is, I looked at it. However, I could not really look at it in the way I was accustomed to looking. I realized that I was, rather, noticing things about it, as if the picture were becoming more clear as parts were added. Its body was covered with tufts of black hair. It had a long muzzle and was drooling. Its eyes were bulgy and round, like two enormous white balls. Yikes. Then it began to beat its wings. It was not the flapping motion of a bird's wings, but a kind of flickering, vibratory tremor. It gained speed and began circling in front of me. It was not flying, but rather skidding with astounding speed and agility, just a few inches above the ground. For a moment, I felt myself engrossed in watching it move. I thought its movements were ugly, and yet its speed and easiness were superb. It circled twice in front of me, vibrating its wings, and whatever was drooling out of its mouth flew in all directions. Dang. Then it turned around and skidded away at an incredible speed until it disappeared in the distance. I stared fixedly in the direction it had gone because there was nothing else I could do. I had a most peculiar sensation of being incapable of organizing my thoughts coherently. I could not move away. It was as if I were glued to the spot. Then I saw something like a cloud in the distance. An instant later, the gigantic beast was circling again at full speed in front of me. Its wings cut closer and closer to my eyes until they hit me. I felt that its wings had actually hit whatever part of me was there. I yelled with all of my might in the midst of one of the most excruciating pains I have ever had. I'll tell a little story about dust and going over the horizon in a little bit. Yeah. When I finish this, the next thing I knew, I was seated on my mat and Don Juan was rubbing my forehead. He rubbed my arms and legs with leaves. Then he took me to an irrigation ditch behind the house, took off my clothes and submerged me completely, then pulled me out and submerged me all over and over again. I laugh because, well, you're going to see this more coming later about this. Now, as I lay on the shallow bottom of the irrigation ditch, Don Juan pulled up my left foot from time to time and tapped the sole gently. After a while, I felt a ticklishness. He noticed it and said that I was all right. I put on my clothes and we returned to his house. I sat down again on my straw mat and I tried to talk, but I felt I could not concentrate on what I wanted to say. Although my thoughts were very clear, I was amazed to realize how much concentration was necessary to talk. I was amazed to realize how much concentration was necessary to talk. We have acquired this skill and we take it for granted. Anybody who does talking kind of for a living will tell you, yes, it requires a lot of energy because we do it when in our regular lives. Well, are we talking or are we just kind of commenting? Yeah, it's a little different. Yes. So we just respond mostly. But when you're talking and you're initiating and there's a moreness and depth to it, and yeah, yes, it takes a lot of concentration, also takes a lot of energy, right? They're very important to be aware of. Very, very important. I also noticed that in order to say something, I had to stop looking at things. I also noticed that in order to say something, I had to stop looking at things. Yes, because his energy has been affected now, so he can't do all things at once. I had the impression that I was entangled at a very deep level, and when I wanted to talk, I had to surface like a diver. I had to ascend as if pulled by my words. Twice I went as far as clearing my throat in a fashion which was perfectly ordinary. I could have said then whatever I wanted to, but I did not. I preferred to remain at the strange level of silence where I could just look. I had the feeling that I was beginning to tap what Don Juan had called perceiving, and that made me very happy. All right, very interesting. Afterwards, Don Juan gave me some soup and tortillas and ordered me to eat. I was able to eat without any trouble and without losing what I thought to be my power of perceiving, in inverted commas. You gotta love Carlos for his superiority paradigm knuckleheadedness, as we're going to see, right? Okay.
Hmm.
So you get the idea, right? That Carlos, nope, sorry, you don't have a clue yet, right? Okay.
Yes.
I had the feeling that I was beginning to tap what Don Juan had called perceiving, and that made me very happy. I wrote it there. I thought to be my power of perceiving. I felt I struggled to perceive until it was quite dark. I finally got tired and lay down and went to sleep. I woke up when Don Juan covered me with a blanket. I had a headache and I was sick to my stomach. After a while, I felt better and slept soundly until the next day. In the morning, I was myself again. I asked Don Juan eagerly, "What happened to me?" Don Juan laughed coyly. "You went to look for the keeper, and of course, you found it." "But what was it, Don Juan?" "The guardian, the keeper, the sentry of the other world." Don Juan said factually. "I intended to relate to him the details of the portentous and ugly beast, but he disregarded my attempt, saying that my experience was nothing special, that any man could do that. Any person could do that. I told him then that the guardian had been such a shock to me that I really had not yet been able to think about it." Don Juan laughed and made fun of what he called an overdramatic bent of my nature. Yes, yes. It's that inherent narcissism which leads to that. That thing, whatever it was, hurt me, I said. That was as real as you and I. Of course it was real. It caused you pain, didn't it? As I recollected my experiences, I grew more excited. Don Juan told me to calm down. Then he asked me if I had really been afraid of it. He stressed the word really. Oh, I was petrified. Never in my life have I experienced such an awesome fright. Come on. You were not that afraid. I swear to you, I said with genuine fervor, that if I could have moved, I would have run hysterically. If I, he found my statement very funny and roared with laughter. What was the point of making me see that monstrosity, Don Juan? He became very serious and gazed at me. That was the guardian. If you want to perceive, you must overcome the guardian. But how am I to overcome it, Don Juan? It is perhaps 100 feet tall. Don Juan laughed so hard that tears rolled down his cheeks. Why don't you let me tell you what I saw, so there won't be any misunderstanding? I said. If that makes you happy, go ahead, tell me. I narrated everything I could remember, but that did not seem to change his mood. Still, that's nothing new, he said, smiling. But how do you expect me to overcome a thing like that? With what? He was silent for quite a while. Then he turned to me and said, "You were not afraid, not really. You were hurt, but you were not afraid." He reclined against some bundles and put his arms behind his head. I thought he had dropped the subject. "You know," he said suddenly, looking at the roof of the Ramada, "every person can perceive the guardian. And the guardian is sometimes, for some of us, an awesome beast as high as the sky. You're lucky. For you, it was only 100 feet tall. And yet its secret is so simple." I want to pause a moment here
Mhm.
and really emphasize on language of conceptuality. Yes. The why do I emphasize language of conceptuality? Why have I put together this conception, which is language of conceptuality? And of course, it has its dictionary, which is the dictionary of power. Because in as a language of conceptuality, when you're able to use this, you are learning to conceptualize, right? And this is very important. So here is where Don Juan struggles with Carlos, because Don Juan doesn't always share things in a conceptual way. And right at this point, what Carlos needs to understand is that in order to deal with the guardian, you have to reconceptualize things. And when
Uh,
that's understood, it all falls into place. Bina?
yes.
All right. So the language of conceptuality is it's a language that we use in order to create and get us into the habit of, I don't want to say thinking conceptually, because that's not quite what we want to do. We want to learn to be able to conceptualize and to perceive the world conceptually, right? Which is not thinking conceptually. It's then you're still thinking. To conceptualize is a different way. Its conceptuality is almost where you are perceiving things directly. It's you getting there, right? But it's what that jumping point off. Because now when you're conceptualizing, you're not thinking in the usual way, which thinking in the usual way is really about describing our world. Yeah. Conceptualize enables us to connect to that which we before had never experienced. See?
Mm.
Conception implies creating something new. Yes?
Yes.
So we're practicing this mindset of creating newness and being able to perceive it. And capital P perceiving is an entirely different paradigm of relating to reality. Right. So and I want to make this point here now that as we go and in the continuation here of Don Juan's explanation of how to deal with the guardian, when you understand it as reconceptualizing, it's easy. That's what Don Juan says. It's easy. But he doesn't quite say it in that way. And of course, Carlos struggles, right? But it's very, very potent. Very, very potent. Can you read yet or not yet, Bina?
Yes, I can.
All right. But you know
Yes.
what, Bina? I think we leave it here for today. Okay?
Yes, this is
Right?
exactly, yeah. That's why I was a bit reluctant to say that because now it's time.
All right. Very good. Very good. Very good. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we've got some time. We could go further, but it starts a whole new conceptionality, right? So we were in
Yes.
this initial conceptionality of Carlos's experience, but now it's shifting, right? We're now getting the takeaway from it, right? And the repeat backs. But Don Juan is going to share the moreness, and so we're in a whole space, and I want that to be a focus. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Plus, we have lots of stuff that we need to do. So all good, all good, all good. I thought I'd stop sharing and I clicked stop share, but it didn't stop sharing. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right, very cool. Before we go, let's just check to see if there are any comments. And anybody joining us? Only Esad joined us. Hello, Esad.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Always have some fun with that. All right.
That
So,
was really interesting because I was seeing my comment there when I didn't make that. So I was like,
oh,
yeah,
oh, that is very. You didn't comment there.
I did later,
Not,
but I was seeing it before
oh.
making that.
Oh, oh. Hello and welcome to Mona's Culture. Yes, 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 yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So let me give you a love and a smiley face there. All
Okay.
right.
Spaisal is busy doing that. Thank you so much
Wow,
for
we're done.
sharing about
Yeah,
the Vegas also, and also personally again I feel that it's a kind of like don't want with all due respect, but your assumption, because you know things, your assumption that other person will be
yeah,
automatically
yeah,
Vegas.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Carlos, okay, again, I would say that, okay, he is coming from a different paradigm and so amazingly helpful for new people to try to understand these things. Because as Sil shared one of his stories about aliens, and he mentioned something about that, okay, how aliens are going to understand things. I feel Carlos
yeah,
exactly like that.
yeah,
You will find it funny because when you are over that aliens don't
yeah,
know that,
yeah.
but it applies to
Right.
people also. If they
Yep,
belong to
yep,
something completely different, and your things, your ideas, your way of
Yeah,
being is
yeah,
completely alien to them, they are going to ask these type of questions. For
right.
you, it's duh. But again,
Exactly,
biocompatibility is amazing concept that nothing is
exactly.
can be obvious until you make it
Right,
obvious.
right, right. And that's the key to conceptualizing is to understand paradigms. When you
Yes.
understand that, hey, I'm operating from my paradigm, but when you start to realize, oh, there's another paradigm that applies, now it changes everything. Yes, and very, very, very key. Yes, I mean, for instance, when I grew up and watching TV, typical movie or sitcom, and very often there'd be, oh, food fight. This was
Yes.
absolutely horrendous from
Yes.
my perspective and that of everybody next door to me. Oh my God, these people are throwing food around. And, from an American point of view, this was funny, amusing, and, cool, whatever. And
Yes.
from my perspective and the cultural perspective, this was like the absolute worst thing you could do. This was, you know, wasting food is a worse thing to do than most crimes. You can still understand, well, all right, you stole because you were hungry or whatever, you got into a fit of temper and you murdered somebody. But wasting food, there's no excuse for that. Yeah? Paradigm, see?
Yes.
Different paradigm, different awareness.
Different paradigm. Different. Yes. So exactly as you as oh
Oh, go ahead, Bina. Go ahead.
no, it was my network was lagging. Please continue.
Oh, oh, all right. So I'm making the point that that's a very simple. It's not really a massive paradigm shift, but it has the basics of it. That you're in a particular culture and you have norms and ideas and beliefs, and if you're not aware that what you take for granted could be seen as egregious somewhere else, you could really get into trouble. I mean, you could go visiting somebody in another country like that, and all right, you're hanging out, you're very casual, and you take your crust of bread and you throw it at your friend. And oh my God, in America, this would be all right, it's kind of cool and funny. But there, it'd be like everything would stop. Like, what in the hell did you just do? You get yourself in trouble, right? And you're clueless, So that's why we need to have awareness, and then we can start the discernment. And then we get understanding, and also conceptuality, right? This is the end point of our awareness, where you can come in a completely different paradigm and really understand this. And that's why one of the reasons I enjoy reading science fiction, because it does put you into that mindset. And many of the authors will really speculate and do so very accurately. Come and say, well, this is what you think the aliens are doing is completely not what they are doing. Right? They have a completely different agenda and intent. And this is the magic and the potency of language of conceptuality, because you learn to understand things like intent, and you get a mechanism that can cross cultures, right? So when we see the intent, and well, the intent of the food fight is not to waste food. It's just a byproduct, right? The intent is to have fun, but it's an obliviousness. So I don't hold it against the people. They're just ignorant, at least relative to my point of view. Yes. And when you come from the other side and you see, wow, people are very serious about not wasting food. Well, what is the intent? Well, food is a bit more scarce, but more expensive, more precious. And it's a cultural thing, right? So it goes deeper. Well, okay, I get it. I understand. Right? It allows us to understand. So intent is a very, very powerful mechanism. And if Carlos had paid attention to not what the Guardian was looking like, but to its intent, that would have changed. Yes. And again, Don Juan's, as wonderful a communicator as Don Juan is, I feel if he makes this clear to Carlos, as we'll see tomorrow, be a game changer. All right. So, intent is an incredibly, incredibly potent conception. All right. Very potent. Conceptuality is ridiculously potent. That's why it's called the dictionary of power. Intent with a capital I is in there, right? To really understand what this is. Changes everything. Changes everything. All right. On that note, we go. Yes, Bina?
Yes, thank you so much everyone for joining us, and thank you so much everyone who is going to watch us record it. If you by chance can find us, please do click like and subscribe to the channel, because by doing so you are going to train your online algorithm to bring more such value into your life, which is directly connected to your life algorithm. Attention
Yes.
is the real magic, real mantra. Okay,
Oh yeah. Oh
wherever
yeah.
you are going
Oh
to
yeah.
pay
Oh
attention,
yeah.
universe is
Oh yeah.
just going to maximize it for you. Be
Right.
very
And we had
mindful
this in
about.
the story.
Yes,
Carlos, because of the little smoke, it affected how he was paying attention. Yes. The net became the
yes,
guardian. Right.
yes,
Isn't that
yes,
interesting?
yes.
Brilliant.
Yes,
Brilliant. All right. All right.
new currency is attention, and of course the
Exactly.
time you are investing. So
Exactly.
please do pay attention. Be really
Exactly.
mindful about your attention, where you are spending
Yes.
time, where you are focusing on. You will
Yes.
be amazed at how much you will notice
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
perceive
Yeah.
more. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us. We will see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.